Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was hungry. The tempter approached him and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." He said in reply, "It is written that one does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and made him stand on the parapet of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He shall command His angels concerning you, and with their hands they will support you, lest you dash your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "Again it is written, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test." Then the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their magnificence. And he said to him, "All these I shall give to you, if you will prostrate yourself and worship me." At this, Jesus said to him, "Get away, Satan. It is written, the Lord your God shall you worship, and him alone shall you serve." Then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
On one of my trips to the Holy Land, the tour group went to the place where they believe Jesus entered the desert for this scene in the Gospel. And you'll never guess what's in a mall right there. A restaurant called Temptation Restaurant. We're told that this temptation, this experience of temptation by Jesus, is sent by God. He is compelled by the Spirit to go into the desert to be tempted by the devil. And so it's as if God is sending them there because we all experience temptation, and God wants to provide us with a way and an example how we are to fight this. We back up into why this is necessary and go into the book of Genesis. And we unravel what's gone on there and how temptation has worked itself out right from the beginning and how it continues to afflict us. The first thing that happens with Adam and Eve, as it can happen to us easily, the voice of temptation through the serpent starts to tickle the ears of Eve. And what happens is she starts to place credibility in his word over God's. God, who gave her and Adam everything in total love. They're almost acting like, well, they're acting like teenagers who have received everything from their parents. And all of a sudden, the teenagers who wake up one morning thinking, Mom and Dad are out to get me. They're trying to sabotage all the things I like. And all the time they've been acting for their good. Does that sound familiar? I did that. Okay? Some of you don't want to admit it. Okay? And so Eve begins to trust another voice over the one who loves her above everything. And the second thing she does is she keeps, her and Adam don't have a discussion about what's going on. And we see, if we read the book of Genesis carefully, Adam is standing right there. And we'll get to him in a minute. But they don't have a discussion. In other words, in the question with God, there's no effort to consult the community. There's no effort to come together in prayer. There's no effort to come together. What they should have done was they should have joined hands and said, Daddy, we have a problem in the garden. But they didn't. Eve remained in isolation, and so did Adam. And so they cut themselves off from community, and they cut themselves off from prayer. Now the devil has got he's really moving. He's going on high speed. And then what happens is Adam, why doesn't he speak up? He has this huge, ferocious serpent accosting his wife. Adam forgot something. He forgot his identity. Adam forgot that he is a son of God. Adam forgot that as God's son, he had the keys to the whole garden, and he was given two mandates. He is supposed to cultivate, that is, care for the garden and protect everything in it. And does anybody want to take a guess at the most prized possession of the garden? The most important thing in the garden? If you said Eve, you're correct. He lost sight that he is supposed to be primarily interested in her and her well-being. And he forgets. He also forgets something else, that as God's son, he forgets that he has authority over everything in the garden. He was asked to give a name to all the creatures, which means that God gave him the gift to see what everything was and power over it by being able to refer to these things by name. So in other words, he gave Adam power over everything. And Adam forgot that. He forgot his identity, and he forgot all the gifts that he had from God. What Adam should have been able to do is what Jesus did in the temptation in the desert. He should have said, Satan, go away. And his word would have had an effect. But he forgot. Because he separated himself from the one where all his power came from. And that is indeed the goal of every temptation, to sabotage our relationship with God. During the season of Lent, we are in a desert. We're journeying with Jesus, and the journey is intentional. We're being asked to face temptation. I think it's rather amusing that the church starts Lent with this reading, because it took me barely a day to have problems with my own Lenten intentions. That probably doesn't happen to any of you at all, but it didn't even take very long for me. But that's between me and my confessor. However, Jesus shows us that we go in this desert, and what is this desert for us? This desert is, we could say, it's the feeling that somehow God isn't as close as we think he should be. And we're sent into this desert, not unaccompanied. We're sent into this desert with Jesus. And we're sent into this desert to face the reality that we're going to have to deal with things the way Adam and Eve did. And it's time for us to do that. And so in this desert, there's a feeling that God might not be close. Why is that? Because you could say that God, during this trek in the desert, has taken the training wheels off of our bicycle, and He's pushed us along. We're so fixated on trying to stay balanced and on the road that we forgot that He's right behind us. And so in the process of trying to navigate in the desert, God is allowing us to use our gifts and our talents and our strengths to be faithful to Him. He doesn't want robots. So He's saying, yes, you're going to feel a little distant from me, but I'm going to be right here. I'm going to push you right along. And you could see it in the Garden of Eden. He was there, but yet they didn't really notice Him. He was just distant enough to let them pedal on their own. They didn't do a very good job. And so we're in the desert, and He's allowing us to use our gifts, our discipline, our strengths, but yet we discover in the desert that this cannot be done by ourselves. We need God's grace. And that's what Adam needed to do. And that's why we have a relationship with God, because we want His grace to accompany us and give us the strength that's necessary to get through life. And He wants to give us this grace. And what Jesus does in this desert is, when the devil tempts Him, the first thing He says is, if you are the Son of God. Oops. What do you mean, if? And that word comes to you as well. If you are sons and daughters of God, no, that's not an if. That's a truth. I am a son or daughter of God. Do you know who you're talking to? Do you know who my Father is? And so, Jesus, you could say, He doubles down here. Instead of forming a discussion, He refers to the Father. Man does not live on bread alone, but on the word that comes from the mouth of God. I don't listen to your mouth, I listen to my Father's mouth. And when we're in the desert and God feels a little bit far, the temptation is, He's not listening to me, so I'm going to stop listening to Him, and I'm going to stop praying. However, during Lent, what we need is an exercise here in what we do in the face of a temptation. When the devil starts, when the temptations start, we don't feel like praying, so guess what? I pray for 10 minutes a day. Oh, how do you like this, devil? I'm praying 15. What do you think about that? And so we double down, like Jesus did. I wasn't too good at going to Mass on Sundays. Oh, you want to harass me? How do you like it if I go every week? How do you like that? Oh, maybe during Lent, I'm even going to get you more mad and tell you who's in charge, because I'm going to go to Mass every day during Lent. Or I'm going to try to make it a couple times a week. How do you like that? Strangely enough, if people do that, pretty soon I start seeing them here the whole year, a couple times a week, because they find something beautiful. Then Jesus is asked the question again, if you are the Son of God, and so again, His identity is questioned. I am the Son of God. We are sons and daughters of God. And so when the temptation comes, we immediately turn to the voice of the Lord. If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. In other words, do whatever you want to do, because don't worry, God's going to rescue you. That's not how you treat somebody you love. And so we double down. Oh, I'm going to start being more careful about the commandments. I'm going to do what God says. I'm not throwing myself down, and especially I'm not throwing myself into your fire of hell. No, thank you. And so we join ourselves even more fervently. St. Ignatius says we do this kind of stuff by penance, prayer, meditation, and examining our conscience. And we start doing this daily. Here we find the sacrament of reconciliation becomes a great gift for us to bring temptation into the light and bring sin into the light. Okay? Because after the temptation or after the sin, instead of letting the devil convince me that I'm not worthy to go back, that's exactly what I do. Whatever the temptation does, we do the opposite. And then Jesus is told, why don't you worship me? Well, we worship only one God. And we give him no more ground. We worship Jesus. We give no more ground to the devil. And we serve him, and we serve him alone. And as we're persistent and as we're patient in the desert, you could say this desert of Lent is iconic of many deserts we'll go through in life. The answer is draw closer to God, and he will draw near to you. We're told that at the end of this round of temptation, the devil leaves him. Because what did Jesus say? Get away, Satan. That's not a bad phrase for us to employ in our personal lives. Get away, Satan. And the devil leaves him. And we're told that angels came to minister to him. It's Matthew's way of saying, when you stand up to the evil one, the consolation comes back, and God is generous in helping you, and he won't leave you out alone in the desert.
Regina Celi, letare